All right, thank you for staying with the State of the Nation. My guests are with me, Honorable Jared Okello, Member of Parliament for Nyando, Honorable Mark Nyamita, Member of Parliament for Uriri, Honorable Robert Mbui, Member of Parliament for Kathiani, and Honorable Anthony Kibagendi, Member of Parliament for Kitutu Churches South. We're talking about whether the promises have been kept or not, and Mark, I'll start with you on this. Has the promise been kept by the President, especially when it comes to SHA, or any other promise for that matter?
Thank you, Trevor. I think in the run-up to the last election, the President did make quite a lot of promises. 2 years later, or 2 years plus later, there are those that have been kept, there are those that have not been kept. For example, let's start with the ones that seem to have been kept or actually have been kept. One is that, today we look at the price of unga, and my colleagues here would agree. I was in the village over the weekend. It's less than 100 shillings. We call it Goro Goro. It's less than 100 shillings. Over the last maybe a year plus, we haven't quite imported maize. That is a promise that has actually been kept. There was a promise about affordable housing. Forget about the issues that people are raising about it. I think affordable housing is on its progress. In our counties, for example, where I come from, I see a number of markets coming up. I see buildings coming up that are going to provide housing. Maybe just short of the target they had indicated of about 250,000 per year. But, heading towards 100,000. So kind of that has actually been kept. Over the last about 3 or 4 months, 2 months actually, we've seen now access to credit easing. We've seen now banks lowering their rates. Yeah, the banks actually have lowered their interest rates, cutting across, meaning access to credit is going to be there for business people and even for normal people. If it continues that way, we are likely to actually see banks getting back to hawking loans as they were before, if something doesn't happen in the future, but that is actually there. The dollar has also been stable over the last year or so at about 129 from the highs of 160s that it was. So to that extent, then he has kept. I mean, it's only 2 years. On the SHA, partially kept, partially not kept. Kept to the extent that today we have 15 million plus people listed on SHA. There's always this thing people keep complaining. NHIF, as it was only for the people who are paying. So when we had less than 5 million people registered on NHIF, and when they were saying it was working for those who could be able to afford, people who are salaried or people who are paying for the NHIF on a day-to-day basis. Today, we have people who are not paying a single coin, but are registered on SHA. So the debate that we are having is on the service quality. But you see, at least you are getting a bit of service, but then the quality is now what we are actually talking about. And like with very many big projects, I have decided to take the optimistic side. With very many big projects like this is a very major transformation that the President did. There could have been 1 or 2 missteps here. Okay. And as we go along and, as you try it, just like when you build a house, you run the water, you realize water is coming from the bathroom, but not in the kitchen, you fix 1 or 2 other things. Okay. We've seen attempts yesterday, the CS Health saying that now they have revamped a bit of the rates for HDU, for
cancer treatment.
Cancer treatment, yeah. They've enhanced the values and things like that. So for me, as a leader, is to continue to give feedback on areas that are actually not working, and how we can quickly be able to fix it.
All right.
Remember, 15 million people registered, less than 4 million paying. 15 million registered, less than 4 million paying, but 15 million wanting the services. This is social. This is actually very big. I mean, we will criticize the system for whatever it is. There are issues here and there that are there, but we can talk about them. So, met partially, yes, because inclusivity, many people now are onboarded onto this platform, and many more people can be onboarded.
Okay.
The working, we can now talk about it.
All right. We'll come to that in just a bit because we are wondering how legislators passed the laws under SHA, and the Auditor General has poked a lot of holes on that. But let me bring in Jared on this. Have the promises been kept? Let's start with the overview and then we zero into SHA.
Okay. Well, I thank you. Basically, the promises were patterned along 4 different phases. There was the first 100 days of President Ruto's administration. Then there was the short term. Then there was the medium term and the long-term goals. So, by the way, we are in the month of March. We've just begun the second half of this regime, together with the life of Parliament. So, any politician would tell you that this is the best time to concentrate more on service delivery to the people. Football lovers or football fans would tell you that there could be a very dry spell in the first half. But if you are an Arsenal fan, then Odegaard and Saka will score up to 7 goals in the second half. Now, that is how optimistic I am getting into the second half of this regime, my friend Trevor. There could have been major setbacks, but this is now the time. And you have seen the president concocting even a bigger team that is more inclusive, both in Parliament and in the executive, to help him push the agenda. And he acknowledges that there are lots of pitfalls in this journey, and that is why he's needing more unity, that the country can move forward. Now, in the short term, the president did say that there were 6 judges of the Court of Appeal who had been given a nod by the Judicial Service Commission, interviewed, passed, and recommended for appointment. The former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, just chose to sit on that document and never swore them into office. Remember that the judiciary, the biggest setback they have always had is the backlog of cases in all tiers of courts, from the Magistrates Court to High Court to Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court. And therefore, they needed additional personnel so that they can quicken the pace of dispensing justice to Kenyans who need it. So, on day one, he swore into office new judges, not in 100 days, but on the same day. On that same day, another promise that he kept was to make the police service financially independent. You remember, he removed their budgetary allocation from the Ministry of Interior to the Office of the Inspector General of Police. That, to me, was a step into the right direction. He talked about, funding or making affordable access to credits of MSMEs. And he did that by bringing in the Hustler Fund at no interest rate. Because we all understand how expensive our loans are out here, particularly for the low-cadre businesses. So he brought in the Hustler Fund to cushion businesses against the adversities of the economic downturn. And to me, that was something that went deep into assisting our youths, particularly on that front. He promised the diaspora affairs to create it as a ministry. Of course, it is not a fully fledged ministry, but now we have foreign affairs and diaspora affairs. Things that are now looking into the issues of our people who live outside this country, because they have a lot to talk about. And now they have a standalone department that looks into their affairs. But most importantly, Trevor, the president chose not to give incentives on consumption, but provide subsidies on production. That is why now my friend Honorable Nyamita just talked about maize. As a member of Agriculture Committee, I would go further to also say that the last 15 years we've always imported sugar. The last 1 year, not even a single ton of sugar has been imported into this country, because the factories that we have 13 now in number and 4 under construction, have the capacity to now produce what the country needs. We have imported zero sugar. And you all understand the importance of self-independence when it comes to food consumption. So when he chose, which was painful because we were used to subsidies on consumption. But he said, no, we can't go this direction. Let us subsidize our production so that we can have readily available fertilizers at heavily subsidized rates. Let's also subsidize farm implements. If you bring in any farm machinery, it does not attract any taxation. And that is the right thing to do. So he has gone into depths to assist this country produce what it can within its means. And that is why we have seen the price of unga coming down, the price of cooking fuel in our palms. Unlike what it was before, it has really come down. But we hope that it will come further down to cushion Kenyans against the escalated prices of essential commodities. So there are promises he has kept. There are many more that need to be done. And that is why I said we are at the center of this regime. We remain with the next half. And we hope that even if not all promises will be kept, but the significant ones that go deep into the living standards of commoners will be addressed. So we remain that hopeful.
We are living in unprecedented political times. Listening to my colleague and very good friend, the Honorable Jared Okello, whom I am privileged to serve in the same committee. I mean, listening to him today, I don't know him. Because the language that he is speaking is foreign to me. Because he is completely, painted a very rosy picture of a regime that is completely a failure in terms of keeping of their promises. We are beyond 50% or around 50% of their term in office. Al Jazeera recently hosted the majority leader. And it came out clearly that only about 5% of their promises have been kept. And when I hear people say, oh no, promises are being kept, we are doing well, I wish that that reporter would have put my colleague to task to explain himself, because even the majority leader was completely at a loss for words, because really the fact is they haven't kept their promises. And this regime, if I may just say, a lot of our people believe that the head of state is a person of doublespeak, and that he lies a lot. In fact, that's one of the nicknames, because even from Kasongo, they've said Kaongo. I mean, there is a belief that he lies a lot. Now, let's talk about my observations. Even today's topic, in June 2024, he banned public harambes. On Sunday, this last Sunday, he was giving 20 million in a public church. That's just the immediate topic we've just talked about. That is already an unkept promise, because he said we'll ban these things. The end is doing it. But then during the campaigns, wow, he was a master. He told us we'll get free phone calls. I would like someone to demonstrate where we can get these free phone calls and free Wi-Fi in this country. He talked about that there will be no demolitions. In fact, he's very good at giving these stories. People are coming from work, you find your sufuria floating because they've been thrown out by somebody else demolishing your home. Over 10,000 families, their homes were demolished in Athi River just last year. He said that there will be no extrajudicial killings. I mean, the amount of the death, the killings of the youth and women in the country is unprecedented. It has never reached that level before. In fact, our youth are living in fear. There are so many of them that do not even know whether they can share a message online or not, because the kind of venom with which he has stamped his authority over the youth in the use of social media space is incredible. And so many of them have been killed, including fighting his one of these ministers, because the minister, I think, is being threatened to be fired, including the abduction of a child. that is, the kin of one of his own cabinet ministers. So basically, let me continue. There's also the issue of Mamamboga and Boda Boda. They were told, they will be brought from the bottom up. And they were told we are forming a government of hustlers. I would like someone to show me which hustler is in that government. I mean, unless you're calling the honorable minister for labor, maybe you're calling that a Boda Boda man, or I don't know, because those are the stories that were given during the campaigns. He said he will never fight his deputy president because he went through a lot of trouble when Uhuru was having issues with him. Now, the thing is this, that Uhuru had problems with him, but Uhuru left him in office. He has kicked out his deputy before the first half of his term. But this is something he told the Kenyan people, I will never fight my deputy. Rigathi Gachagua is outside. He has brought in a proxy, a Mr. Yes, sir, to take over that office. An office, a person who, marshaled his resources, his own resources, and his community to back him for presidency. He says education will improve. All of us are aware that schools are closing early in Kenya because either the capitation is not enough or many times it comes and it is delayed. And you know that the university funding model has failed. That one was thrown out by the courts. But that is all part of what he had promised that he would improve, but he hasn't done that. Taxation. If you remember some of the things he talked about, taxation on fuel. One day he called a press conference. He had all these members of his team lined up behind him. And he really read through the number of tax elements that are contained in the price of fuel in Kenya. Yeah. And he said, why do we have all these? He has not removed a single one. If anything, as we sit here, he illegally increased the road maintenance levy by 7 shillings per litre. And fortunately, the prices of fuel have gone down internationally, so that is what has cushioned Kenyans. Now, I go on, that he said that there will be no more borrowing. In fact, he said, the government has been borrowing a lot of money. Not to forget, he was a deputy president for the period that he was complaining about. He was always a deputy president, always earning a salary, never resigned, never stepped aside. But he complained that, there's too much borrowing. He continues to borrow. In fact, his first year, he was globetrotting all over the world. And every one of those trips was about looking for money to borrow so that he can run as affairs of the state. But he told us he would not borrow. Now, I'm about to finish. He said that there will be no increased taxation. People are, and you remember him saying, munaongeza, hii ushuru inaongezwa kiholela holela, usiku na mchana. He came into office. Trevor, we have never been taxed as we are now. All Kenyan pay slips, because he said pesa mfukoni, we thought it meant he put money in people's pockets. He has taken out money from Kenyans. Everybody with a pay slip in this country is crying. The police are crying, the military are crying, teachers are crying, every one of us, including us as members of parliament, we are crying because he has put his hands in our pockets and taken everything he can. But he had told us that there will be no excessive taxation. Now, I think the list goes on and on. Trevor, if you give us another maybe 2, 3, 4 hours, we may attempt to demonstrate and maybe But the reality is that the promises that were given by the president and his team of Kenya Kwanza have not been kept.
Okay, that's a general idea. But
I think just a small rebuttal, Trevor. I agree that, like when I said, the president did give quite a bit of promises. The truth is that all those promises have not been kept. But I think let's also be fair that it's 2 years into office, half of his time in the first term. We can't really say that, he has not done any of those promises. And Kibagendi agrees with me that, SHA, in fact, I didn't know 18 million and 3 million are paying. You honestly cannot expect that the service quality, because NHIF, when it was dealing with just about 3 million people who are paying, 3 million who are paying, I pay for some of my other workers, I pay for them a medical cover. The delivery of services for the medical cover that is paid for when they go to other hospitals cannot be the same as the one you will get from a social health insurance fund. They cannot be. They cannot even be when now you have 18 million people registered and 3. So the quality has to be lowered. But the thing is this, it's called, in fact, in taxation, they will call it almost like tax redistribution. take from those people who have, redistribute it to the others who do not have. If you have actually been enjoying an all-and-sweet bed in a hospital, what SHA is actually telling you, please come to a normal ward bed so that 3 other people can also get to a normal ward bed. I will complain because I've been used to an en-suite room. That's for sure. So the services, for sure, they cannot be the same. Why? Because only 3 people out of 15 million are paying. I also disagree with him on the issue of the dollar. You know, you cannot say that that is bad economics. It's not even actually economics. To say that the reason why the dollar is stable is because people are now no longer... It's
going up anyway.
The people are not... we are talking up to now. If it goes up tomorrow, the fundamentals maybe have changed. Yeah. But we are talking about today. It has actually been stable because the fiscal policy is right. The banks are actually lowering interest. Fact. It is there. Check with your bank today. In fact, most of us bank with Cooperative Bank. They have lowered their rates. We have banks like SMB now even doing loans up to about 9%. So that's a fact. The other thing that, you know, my brother talks about demolitions. I completely disagree on the issue of demolitions. Demolitions, our people should not lose their houses, you know, haphazardly, that, you know, tomorrow you wake up, it is a bad practice. But the particular case of Athi River, my good friend who comes from that particular region, knows that there are people who are occupying land that they have bought for 500,000, yet the value of the land across the street is 5 million. So clearly they were illegal occupants. Maybe other places where demolitions have actually happened, but particularly for Athi River, that was an illegal occupation. So it does not mean that when you say that we are no longer going to do demolitions, that tomorrow you can just jump onto any other land because the government is no longer going to carry out demolitions. But let me say something about the deputy. I don't think, and I challenge my good friends here, I don't think the president has fought his deputy president. It is the deputy president who fought the president and all the rest of Kenyans. The deputy president that we got, you know, even today, even the first topic when we were talking about, people are raising a huge storm about the 20 billion that the president actually gave. But in that very charge, the deputy president gave 5 million. No one spoke about it. Same guy. And not even today, before. Gave 5 million to the same pastor. No one spoke about it. No one has asked Rigathi Gachagua, where did you get the 5 million to give it to one church, which is not his church? You get? The deputy president that we had, that maybe save for Robert Mbui, even Kibagendi agreed and voted for us to actually send that deputy president away, was a bad deputy president for this nation. He not only fought the president, but he fought everyone else. You remember the Mitego story? You remember the SHA stories? It was the same deputy president. Only for him later to come and say, I was instructed by my boss to say, what sort of a deputy president then are you? If you can be told that a government can only be run by 2 people, and you go to the public and say, nyinyi mungoje kwanza, nyinyi mungoje, and things like that. And on the issue of fuel, we can do better. If we bring down a bit of taxation, we can do better. But the price of fuel in this country is actually quite comparable to other countries in the region.
Okay.
You can check all the way to South Africa.
All right. Jared, I'll give you a chance to rebuttal because your colleagues went against you as well before we shift topics. Yes.
And finally, sorry, Trevor, I didn't mean to interject. I come from a sugar belt.
Yeah.
Kibaki left us with debt in the sugar industry. All the time we asked him to pay for the debt, the only people whose debts were written off were people who were coffee farmers and tea farmers. Uhuru came in for 10 years. We kept on asking, and he sits in the Agriculture Committee, he will tell you. We asked him, please, look into this issue. The president in 2 years has paid over 112 billion. Our farmers have money in the pocket. The factory where I come from, Sony Sugar, for the first time, actually got to what we could call, you know, EBITDA positive. I mean, they were able to at least raise money enough to... Employees in that organization now are getting their money before end of the month. For us, that is a promise kept.
Okay. All right, yeah.
Allow me to firstly disabuse certain assertions and notions as advanced by my 2 colleagues here, Honorable Kibagendi and Honorable Mbui.
Mbui says he doesn't know you anymore.
Yeah, he will know me. Before I talk about something on SHA also.
Yeah.
First things first. I did not set the questions here. You set them. And you asked, have promises been kept? And my first statement was that most of those promises have not been kept. And I went straight into the few that have been kept. Because that was your question. It wasn't Mbui's question on me. It was your question to us. And I made it clear that we are in halftime, the second half now. And as optimistic as I am always, I do believe that most of them, not all of them, can be kept. In fact, President William Ruto made over 250 promises. 250 if you catalog all of them. I am not saying that he has the capacity and the wherewithal as President of the Republic of Kenya to achieve all of them. Then I would be over-ambitious. And I want to live within the confines of what is capable. President Ruto did not impeach Gachagua. In fact, Mbui's brother, Honorable Mutuse, brought a petition before us in Parliament. I didn't see Ruto in the whole time that we were impeaching Gachagua. Now, when Parliament succeeded, that is the National Assembly, the matter went to the Senate, where Ruto does not sit. And Senate impeached Gachagua. The matter moved from Senate to court, where Ruto does not sit. I can confirm that all of us four here impeached Honorable Gachagua. Not William Ruto, not anybody who sits in the executive. And they can tell me if President Ruto called any one of them to impeach Gachagua. He never called me. But because of the allegations leveled against him, I believed they were evidence enough to torpedo his leadership and take him to Wamunyoro village. So you can't, fault Ruto for anything on that. Allow me to say something about SHA. Now, SHA was a brilliant idea because we understand the challenges that our health sector goes through. And there are many, a myriad challenges. And the president, in his wisdom, and by the way, I'm perturbed that my friend Honorable Kibagendi is one of the people who wrote the UDA manifesto. Now, you've given him a whole 1 hour to tell us how, while writing that manifesto, how are they going to achieve them? He's only here to castigate what he wrote. I thought he was going to tell us that on SHA, we were going to do A, B, C, D. On food subsidy, we had suggested the A, B, C, D. So they just wrote a document they did not understand. I mean, how would you do such a thing? Now, on SHA, SHA was meant to achieve 3 major health benefits. 3. Social Health Insurance Fund, Primary Health Fund, and emergency and chronic. Now, the primary health was not to be contributory, together with emergency and chronic. Those were to be shouldered by Treasury. So it was Treasury. In fact, one of the issues that arose yesterday on the budget policy statement was some 73 billion shillings that was not captured into the budget policy statement. And the CS has come out, Honorable Mbadi, to say that that was to go towards the SHA. Meaning, therefore, that Treasury was to appropriate monies to go towards taking care of primary health care and emergency and chronic. Now, on emergency, basically you are around Kenyatta Hospital or Nairobi Hospital and you collapse. Now, once you collapse, because the nearest health facility is Nairobi Hospital, you were to be taken there, and the emergency fund is to take care of that. Now, on chronic, chronic means perhaps you have terminal illness and a chronic illness that has taken too long, and you have exhausted your insurance, for example. Now, on ex gratia, which is an additional grace, you were to be taken care of beyond what your insurance can provide. And this was also not contributory. The one that was contributory is Social Health Insurance Fund. Now, just like collection of taxes becomes a very difficult thing in Kenya, if somebody is not in a formal employment, the same thing is playing out here. Kenyans are quick to register, but they do not tell you how they are going to service their premiums during the course of their living on this earth. And that is where the problem is. If everybody was employed, it becomes very easy to just deduct from their pay. But because this was relying on the donations or contributions of the beneficiaries together with, monies from the treasury, it then becomes very difficult because treasury really does not have enough money to take care of the primary and chronic and emergency. And on primary health care, it was only meant to go to level 2 and level 3.
Okay.
But you end up with everybody going to level 4 in Kenyatta and level 5 and level 6 in Kenyatta. Whereas this particular fund was only meant to look for hospitals under level 2 and 3.
Okay.
Finally, on the same, we have had issues with the private hospitals. Now, private hospitals are not chickening out because they are not being paid on SHA. That is not the case. They are pending bills from NHIF that they have not been paid. And they are saying, if SHA is not going to pay us, because the law as we made it was that NHIF was to be dissolved, SHA was therefore to assume all liabilities and assets under NHIF. And liabilities also mean the debts. Payments and those debts. And they're not servicing those debts. So the hospitals are saying, if we are only going to continue without looking, the rear mirror, then that is not the direction we are taking. That is why they have pulled out.
Okay.
So the president, together with his cabinet, need to find a way. Of course, there is a way. They call it proxy mean testing, where you appear before them, you fill a form, and the form generates how much you should pay per month, even in an informal settlement. Whether that proxy mean testing system works, I do not understand.
Okay. Let me bring in Kibageni on this. There are two issues that have been raised by Jared that you'll respond to.
Probably the first one is about the proxy means testing. It cannot work. Proxy means testing using online registration cannot work in this country. The only way you can understand someone's status, economic status, is to use their assistant chief or even their pastor. That is the only way you can understand people in this country. Because if Trevor says, when you're filling in the form, that you have cows, in your family you have 2 cows, and there are those Zebu cows. And then Honorable Nyamita here fills the form and says we have cows, and they have the Frisian cows that give 20, 30 liters of milk. You are deemed to be the same. If you fill in the form and say you have a lavatory or a toilet within your house, and the other person fills in a form to say their toilet is a pit latrine, this one who says they have a toilet in the house, the assumption is that they are well-to-do, so it cannot really work.
But did you raise this at the health?
We have you are consistently. Myself, Honorable Nyikal, Honorable Oron, we have raised this, and this is the same thing that was used in the means testing for university funding model that ended up putting poor kids in bands that they did not really belong. Now, on to, again, SHA. I said SHA is a wonderful idea. The problem is there are people who want to take advantage, particularly through the system, to try and make money in inappropriate ways. Like he has said, issues to do with the emergency and chronic illness fund is a great idea. We have the primary health care, which is where mainly we need to do a lot of review, particularly on the amounts that can be spent on certain things. Do you know, as we speak, Trevor, a household can only spend per year 3,000 shillings on dental. A household. They can only be able to spend 2,000 shillings on optical. They can only spend 3,000 shillings on, let's say, diabetes testing. And chronic illnesses like obesity have not been catered for in this particular fund. So it has issues. And the biggest issue for me on SHA is the scheme to defraud Kenyans and the inferior services in comparison to what NHIF was offering, whereby we are collecting double the amount NHIF was offering and giving inferior services. Those are the areas that I have a problem with. The other thing my senior here has spoken about is about the manifesto that we made, a wonderful manifesto that we made. We need 2-3 hours for me to take you through what the manifesto said and how we intended to actualize it. Yeah? We did not anticipate shortcuts for individuals to self-seek, especially in business, in terms of business opportunities, through the housing scheme. And again, it is the same president that consistently said, we are not going to tax Kenyans anymore. And that is why Kenyans have nothing to spend. Okay. And we say inflation has gone down, all this, but all that is because nobody has power to spend. Okay. Yeah? Right. While we appreciate that the cost of food has gone down, and we hope this drought that has happened will not affect the production. It is nauseating to see my colleagues that we have been talking together, the language I'm speaking now, switch in a flash. Yeah? Just because of the broad-based. The consistency, are you telling me 5 or 3, 4, 5 months ago, they did not see the things we are talking about? Because I have been with Honorable Jared Okello in this studio, and he was speaking the language I'm speaking. Yeah, I would forgive. I would forgive Honorable Nyamita, who has been consistent. Yeah. Honorable Nyamita has been consistent in his support for this government. Okay. But it is really nauseating the entire nation that the opposition can now start singing Hosanna like the gentleman in Canada keeps saying, yet they know what Kenyans are going through. Okay. Why would Kenyans hate this government so much if it has met 10, 20, 30% of the promises they gave? Why would we have this kind of hostility against government across the country? Okay. Yeah? And again, I want to warn Kenyans. I want to warn Kenyans. Please do not allow these politicians to create enemies for you. There is a scheme by some leaders to create Rigiji as the enemy of Kenyans so that they don't actualize the promises they gave Kenyans and start saying Rigiji is our problem. Yeah? I personally did not like how Rigiji used to behave. I like him now. I actually love Rigiji because he's telling us the truth about what was promised to Western Kenya, what was promised to Coast, what was promised to all these people. Okay. He's the one who has told us the housing project is purely business. From cement, there are people who are making commissions. Steel, people making commissions. Sale of the houses, people are making commissions. He's the one who is exposing the rot in this government. And I agree with him that sometimes, even me, I have bloggers that I tell, can you post this? Rigiji, that time when he says, indeed, he was being asked to say the things he said, I forgive him. And now where we are today, we are asking him to continue telling us the truth. And we tell Kenyans, do not allow Kenya Kwanza and their new friends to create an enemy for you.
Is he now the liberator of Kenyans?
He's not the liberator. He's telling us the truth. The liberator are Kenyans themselves. Okay. They've said this regime must go. All right. And it will definitely be going.
Let me hear what Robert Mbui has to say.
you know, Kibagendi has agreed with me, and I just want to say that I also continue being amazed by my colleague here. We sit in the same committee of delegated legislation, and these SHA regulations were brought before us, and he was very vehement, you know, in poking holes on the same things that now he's trying to pussyfoot around. He was very, very clear that this means testing and all these things will not work. So now today, I don't know what has happened. I don't know, maybe he's gotten to Canaan. But now, allow me to, to just point out some things and put them in perspective. Yeah. We are not saying that the government has done nothing. We are just saying they haven't kept the promises because 50% of the time is gone. they've only kept 5%. So, I mean, if that goes on the same rate, although my colleague says, you know, maybe there were no goals in the first half and maybe there will be many goals, I'm not very optimistic because I know the language from the beginning till the end. So the chances are that if it's 5% at 50%, it will be 10% at 100%. That means it will be only 10%. 90% of the promises will not have been kept. But there's this issue that has been talked about here about the dollar. And, you know, it's also somehow now suddenly being attributed to Kenya Kwanza that they've done well. You know, sometimes it's good to look at history. When Uhuru left office, the exchange rate of the dollar to the Kenyan shilling was at 120. It is now at 128, almost 30.
131.
It's at 131, about 128, 130, thereabouts. So in essence, the value of the Kenyan shilling is lower now than it was in 2022 when Uhuru handed over power. So how can we suddenly, you know, the reason why they keep talking about this is because immediately after they took over power, the total mismanagement and the words that they uttered at that point and the mess they caused pushed it to about 160. So when it has improved a little from the mess created by Kenya Kwanza to 130, now they're saying we are doing very well. But you compare 120 to 130, not 130 to 160, because 160 is a creation of Kenya Kwanza itself. Now, I've heard here that the president was not behind the impeachment. Wow. I mean, you know, Kenyan politics will never cease to amaze me. The deputy speaker herself in a public function with the president, and you air these things here on TV, we watch them. You know, I have a TV in my house, so I'm able to see, I can see her speak, I can see the president seated behind her, and she says, Your Excellency, when you sent us and told us to impeach Rigathi Gachagua, we did it. And everybody cheered her, because that was a task that was given to them. I can tell you, even the person who read that, who moved that motion, it has come out even from Kenya Kwanza, the National Organizing Secretary of Kenya Kwanza, UDA party, told us, I'm sure you have the clips, and said, this person did not write this motion. We wrote the motion, he was only given an opportunity to read it. Okay. So clearly, I mean, I like to be honest like Rigiji. Yeah.
Okay. Let me see some feedback that's coming through, a lot of it coming through here, and then I'll come to you for closing remarks because you're running out of time. I'll start with you, Jared, and then we close at the end. Let's see what the people are saying. Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya is the hashtag Daybreak. Bobo Tieno Wino says President William Ruto should walk the talk over church donations and practice the biblical sayings of what the right hand gives, left hand shouldn't know, because of the current mood of political tension in the country. Okay? Engineer Lazaro says social places like schools, hospitals and churches facing distinctions without an Arambe or foreign aid, we should open up our minds and reflect the vacancy left behind by Trump aid cut. Okay? Baraza says it's surprising how quickly Jared Okello saw the light and immediately realized how the KK regime is keeping fidelity on its deliverables. Indeed, it's true that every politician has a price tag hanging over his or her head. Ikangu says deceitful of the ODM MPs to claim that 18 million are registered while only 3 million are paying. Fact is, government coerced 14 million into registering. E.g., if you don't register, your child won't be allowed in school, and the parent must be registered first. Okay? Remy says SHA challenges such as limited public awareness and inefficiencies in service delivery hinder its effectiveness. To strengthen it, the government should prioritize enhancing public education and improve administrative efficiencies. Aboki says, I agree with Honorable Kibagendi 100% that the biggest undoing of this regime is taxes. These taxes are extrapolative. They don't make life any better for common mwananchi. The rallying call of this regime was to improve the life of Mama Mboga na mtu wa boda boda. Jared Okello, closing remarks. There are many people are wondering, when did you see the light?
Well, really, I haven't seen the light. I'm still the very person. I wish everybody who spoke, including the panel here, would challenge me and say, the things that you have enumerated as having been delivered have not been delivered. No one has challenged me. So you brought us here, and this is a very deliberate panel. You brought a panel of Kibagendi and Mbui on one camp, Nyamita and I on another. This was deliberate. Otherwise, if we were all going to read from the same script, we were not going to be of any benefit to the viewers. So you are very deliberate on this panel. I only went into issues that have been delivered, and I also acknowledged that there are a lot to be done. Now, the president has moved further to have broad-based composition in Parliament. Yesterday, we saw the chairpersons are yet to be elected, but at least from the list that has been reconstituted, we can see that there are certain committees that are going to be chaired by people from my political divide.
At the expense of Gachagua allies?
I don't know whether they were Gachagua's allies, because Gachagua does not have a political party that we can say he had these members in Parliament. So whether they are his allies or not, I cannot tell. But what I'm saying is we are in half time. The president has brought in experts from our divide. I have a lot of confidence in Honorable Mbadi, Honorable Wandai Energy, Honorable Beatrice School in East Africa Community and ASAL, Honorable Joho in Blue Economy, and together with Honorable Paranya at cooperatives. These sectors feed the country directly from what Mbadi was given to my sister Beatrice's School. And we have absolute confidence in this team. I don't know much about the other camp. But with this team, and that is why I will always remain hopeful. But again, if this country collapses, as may be the wish of many, where will you be? We collapse with you.
Good question. Closing remarks. Very briefly, we're running out of time.
Yes. I would like to tell our president and the Kenya Kwanza government that they should not be fascinated by cheap and insincere flattery from those that are singing praises for them. The country is not in a good space. And again, inform President William Ruto that divorce causes tremendous disruption. His divorce with Honorable Gachagua has caused a tremendous disruption to this government, to the extent the president is not focused on service delivery. He's struggling to survive as a politician. That is why he's literally given out his entire government, hopefully, to get elected. And that is why we are telling those who will be running against President William Ruto, your tag should be very easy. You just say no more lies, no more lies, and that will work a great deal. Now, to finish it off, is that Kenyans are severely overworked and grossly underpaid. And that should be a reason enough for President William Ruto to review his taxation model, especially on SHA and the housing levy. I know he may do it for purposes of trying to lure Kenyans to re-elect him, but let him do it from the heart. If he can do that, Kenyans will reduce on the strain that they have currently.
All right, Mbui?
You know, I was just telling my colleague, the Honorable Nyamita, sorry, because he seems to have seen the light before some other members, but he was also being fought for seeing the light then. My issue is, you know, Parliament, the roles of Parliament are clear in Article 95. That you're supposed to represent, legislate, and oversight. Oversight, the executive. Unfortunately, Parliament is under siege, and the Honorable Jared has confirmed that, in fact, even the committee chairs are not elected by members of Parliament as per the standing orders, but selected from elsewhere, because he's already told us that some committees will be chaired by people from... I thought that when we reconstitute committees, the members of those committees will go and decide who the chairs will be. But unfortunately, Parliament is a lame duck.
All right, Mark?
Trevor, I continue to choose the optimistic side, that this country is destined for greatness, because otherwise would be detrimental to all of us. We all live in this country. If it collapses with all of us. Number two, for some of us, the reason why we choose the optimistic side is that this is the first government to have made deliberate attempts at inclusion, especially in regions where some of us come from. And I say this as a matter of fact, that, you know, I spoke about sugar, I spoke about some of the development projects we are seeing. We have never seen, I mean, we were in a previous regime for a whole 10 years that we didn't see anything. Now, we wouldn't want that we are rallied against one particular individual, either the deputy president or someone else. But all we are asking is that this government, if it continues to be inclusive, because also when they're saying that people are being rallied to hate Gachagua, Gachagua is also rallying people to hate another person. Number three is that there's a bit of discomfort with people who have had the sense of entitlement to government resources for a long time. And that the fact that now that the resources are being distributed across the country, some equity is almost being attained, of course will not make them feel comfortable. They'll be directing resources to one particular region, to specific projects. You know, if you came to my place, people are still clapping for a Maram road. If you do Maram roads in certain parts of this country, they will chase you away. People still clap for a borehole or for even a shallow water pan in some of our regions. In other regions, they will only clap for water if it is on the tap. So we are completely, so for me, if there is an attempt at equity, I choose the optimistic side.
Okay. Thank you so much for making time this morning. Honorable Jared Okello, Member of Parliament for Nyando, Honorable Mark Nyamita, Member of Parliament for Uriri, Honorable Robert Mbui, Member of Parliament for Kathiani, and Honorable Anthony Kibagendi, Member of Parliament Kitutu Chache South. Thank you all for making time this morning for the State of the Nation. If you're wondering what's cooking, that's coming up next with Chef Oscar. Bye for now.